Should I stay with the devil I know or gamble with the devil who lurks? Politicians and politics have been the same since King Nebuchadnezzar, with each administration criticizing, albeit holding those in office accountable. In the arsenal of tools for effective opposition is character assassination, proof of impropriety and mismanagement. Prove your opponents are guilty or have the ability to malign them successfully, and the highest office in the land is yours. There is no doubt that on many occasions, the truth has been foreign to Alan Chasney. In 2016, the electorate hired him and his team to reduce the debt to GDP ratio, to amputate unemployment, and to ensure that inflation did not drain our pockets. After years in office, the numbers do not lie. St. Lucia's debt to GDP has improved significantly. Unemployment pre-COVID-19 was at an all-time low, and inflation figures suggest proper management of the economy. And these are the facts. However, over the past 4 years, it has been one scandal after the next. Now, the devil who has governed for the past 4 years is preparing to offer himself to the electorate for a second term. The question is, will St. Lucians choose for better or worse? Part 2. The media in St. Lucia has always been political. For eons, star journalists have colored the truth they brought to light based on the side of the political fence they massaged at the time. Rick Wayne, certainly St. Lucia's most prolific journalist, spent years in a tango with John Compton to defend free speech and professional journalism. Time revealed that Rick Wayne was nothing but a Labour Party operative disguised as a journalist, and it took the puppet master to help expose his true colors. However, when he was offended by New Labour, Rick Wayne found it just as important to become a journalistic thorn in the side of Labour, a role that until today he remains. The Voice newspaper, the oldest and arguably the most professional paper in St. Lucia, has for years tried to toe the political line, yet remains aligned with whichever party is in power. The paper provides a facade of non-partisan in its fine print, thanks in great part to the experienced editors who established a level of journalistic objectivity. Then, naturally, there was the toiling tissue of the printing press, the Mirror and the Crusader, papers owned and designed by political hacks for the express purpose of dissemination of political information disguised as authentic journalism. Today's journalists are driven by a completely different agenda, a revival in the journalistic sphere that encompasses a mix of television and radio talk shows and their hosts and station owners with their own agenda and political axes to grind, who completely ignore the rules of journalism. News reporters are supposed to present a newscast in a factual, non-biased manner for the elucidation of all. Instead, many who pose as authentic journalists are nothing more than political operatives with a mic, camera, and platform to broadcast. Alongside them are a legion of politicians past and current, ready to capitalize on every journalist's weakness. The big scoop or the story that will hit the airwaves.
Who's this young man? You are new? Huh? Don't let these guys spoil you. Okay? If you need advice, come to me.
St. Lucia's journalism is marred particularly by the allure of political promises to journalists for maligning, dishonest and misrepresentation of the truth. Aggrieved politicians, scorned by constant rejection, have today branded themselves as the messengers of truth, ready to insult, scandalize, and drag one's professional reputation through the gutters simply to score maximum ratings. As a producer of Untold stories, I have been attacked, denied journalistic privileges, and provoked by political party operatives because there is a sentiment that I am politically sensitive to Alan Chasney or any UWP administration for that matter. The truth, however, is not for the faint of heart. I am a blue-blooded journalist who does not own a national ID, who has never voted, who has no intentions of voting, and remains completely apolitical. My re-entry into the political sphere in 2011 was with the production of the documentary series Election Countdown 2011, where the documentary represented both political organizations. No doubt, the Labour Party took offense to some of their productions because they felt these productions did not provide them with a competitive advantage. Let me state categorically at this point that the role of a true journalist is not to provide any advantage in reporting, but to lay the facts as they exist, allowing the audience to make up their own judgment, regardless of the journalist's personal beliefs. Years later, I remain a journalist committed to telling the truth, irrespective of which political party is in power. Untold Stories has on multiple occasions been denied interviews by politicians on both sides. Most famously, I was asked not to engage Dr. Kenny Anthony at a political meeting where key questions should have been asked. Alan Shastney and his government have also given us the runaround for years for a sit-down interview on his performance and management of St. Lucia's economy. In spite of those rejections, we remain steadfast in the belief that as journalists, our role and responsibility is to gather information and write articles that are founded in truth and balanced, so to influence public opinion and update our loyal audiences on matters pertaining to their country.
The answer to that question. Caribbean has done very well, Mr. Speaker. I'm very proud of the fact that St. Lucia has done the best in the Caribbean.
Approaching the third anniversary of the Alan Shastney administration, I sought to produce a documentary with the opposition on their assessment of Shastney's performance over the last 3 years. Several letters were penned to the Labour Party requesting interviews. We were invited to a pre-production meeting with the present leader of the opposition and his PR consultant. There, we thrashed out the topics we would discuss, and this meeting concluded with a gentleman's agreement on the subjects and the date of the interview. 2 days before the interview, the opposition leader reneged. We continued to pursue the possibility of having the said interview, and for another year, Mr. Pierre refused to respond to any of our correspondence. On Monday, April 9th, 2019, Budget Day, we waited outside the House of Assembly just to ask for a formal sit-down interview. Mr. Pierre, quick question.
Yes.
Would you have an interview with Untold Stories for the third year of your party being in opposition?
I'll have to consider.
I know there's a choice, but is there a reason why you will not speak to the free press?
My choice is I speak to you when I feel it's right.
Morning, Dr. Hilaire. Morning, sir. I have a very quick question. My name is Dale Elliott, and I'm the producer for Untold Stories. I've been trying to produce a documentary with the opposition for the last 3 years on their assessment of the government's performance over the last 3 years. Will you have a formal interview with Untold Stories on the said subject?
Why not? I have interviews every time I come to Parliament. Anytime the media reaches out to me, you can ask any media person. I've never refused to share my views on the performance of the government.
Will you have a formal sit-down interview with Untold Stories on the subject?
Like I just told you, I sit down all the time with the media. All of them ask me questions, and I always answer questions about the performance of the government. Of course, any question you ask me that I can answer, I will answer.
Thank you very much, sir. After the agreement for an interview, we tried contacting the politicians for months to no avail. We decided, therefore, to attend the SLP's weekly press briefing. This time, it was chaired by the member for Labrie, Alva Baptiste, who addressed a cohort of local journalists on the present state of St. Lucia's economy.
Yes, my brother.
So what was the debt to GDP ratio in 2014? National debt to GDP.
It has a historical record. Just get the page. That's about 10 years. I want you to be aware that there was a rebase When there is a rebasing, it reduces the debt to GDP ratio. So
Second, give us the tell us the three economic indicators, three main economic indicators for any economy.
yeah, well, this is an economics class.
No, it is a press conference where you've spoken about debt to GDP, and I'm asking you a question as a journalist.
Well, the GDP, you look at the general level of prices in the economy, and you look at unemployment, the employment situation. These are very important indicators in any economy.
Do you trust the review of the social and economic review done by CDB?
I have no reason to enter any public debate with economists who go about doing their work.
Do you use that as a reference?
Yes, I do. So where are you going? What is your question?
My question was very clear. What was the debt to GDP in 2014?
Yes, I'm getting it for you. All right. But what is the relevance of that information?
You spoke very clearly about the national debt. Yes? So there must be information that you use to substantiate your statements.
Okay. I spoke to the national debt.
Let me finish, please, Mr. Batiste. According to the Social and Economic Review, national debt to GDP 2014, 74.5%. 2015, 65.4%. What does that tell you? What does that indicate, Mr. Batiste?
I want you to ask pertinent questions.
These questions are pertinent. Please answer. Please answer the question. We will determine whether they're pertinent or not. Please answer the question.
If it moved from 74 to 65, it has declined. So we can stay the whole day and go through those incremental
What does that mean for the
stages.
country when it declines? What does it mean for the country when the debt to GDP declines?
So, with all due respect,
In 2016, Mr. Batiste, debt to GDP was 69.5%. And in 2017, it was 68. In 2018, it was 67.8, lower than in 2014 and 15. Yes? What do these figures show as it relates to the performance of the St. Lucian economy?
Mr. Elliott.
Mindful that we could not monopolize the press briefing, we waited until it was over to ask Mr. Baptiste key questions in a one-on-one interview. This never happened. We reached out to Alan Chasney in May 2019 to discuss his handling of St. Lucia's economy and to demand answers for the people of St. Lucia. Just like the opposition, he ducked and dodged. However, 1 year later, shortly after his 4-year anniversary, he finally agreed to have a sit-down interview to discuss his performance, achievements, scandals, shortcomings, and political trajectory for 2020-2021.
Life is a series of triumphs and trials. The circle of life has all the usual certainties and, of course, the unpredictable. Just one can affect you and your loved ones. Sadly, many fail to prepare for the unforeseen. Thankfully, we've been here for over 138 years, helping you plan and recover. We offer peace of mind at that critical moment. GTM Insurance. Sound, solid, and reliable. Call us today at 458-6300 or log on to gtminsurance.net.
Here's to the stylish ones, the soccer ones, the pooling ones, and the beach bums. The ones who disregard the status quo, and the technologically advanced ones. For those who pay less and demand more. For those who want this, that, and everything in between, the Tivoli. Starting at only $899 per month. For those who need a test drive, call M Motors today. Telephone 451-4269.
Once in your life, you will need a doctor, a lawyer, a policeman, and a preacher. But every day, 3 times a day, you need a farmer. Sun up and sun down, we're in the fields and on the sea, wrestling your next meal, tending to crops, and caring for the animals. Technology increases our yield and makes us more efficient. We're the best navigators, accountants, delivery men, and sales agents. We nurture the next generation, and best of all, we're supported by our extended financial family. Come speak with them about SmartClimb, the facility which transitions us from farmers to sustainable agri-businessmen. The Laborie Cooperative Credit Union. We're not a bank, we're better.
Where most people see a window, we see a vision. We see the hours of development and testing, from the precision of craftsmen, quality of components, CNC processing to form immaculate all-glass products, the dedication of people who stand behind a product built to last a lifetime. And who knows, maybe after today, every time you look through one, you'll remember everything that went into it. St. Lou means windows, doors, and all-glass products, and customization of modular products to suit your needs. Precision, quality, safety. They're your windows and your world. Call us today at 454-6538.
During the course of this interview, is there any topic or question that I'm not allowed to ask you on? Ramp your head. In terms of the projects delivered over the last 4 years, the one for you that stands out?
You know, I would have to say the sports projects and putting the sports development in place, and going to the Groselet secondary school and seeing the sports academy that we had there. And it was, people didn't understand what we were doing, and then as it started to unfold, here's a school that hardly anybody wanted to go to, and now one of the more sought after schools to go to, and it's not even finished yet. And it's just to see the kids and the coaches and the teachers and the level of enthusiasm that created, it was really, it's a great project.
Your 5 to stay alive was referred to as a gimmick. How many of those have you accomplished?
All of them. You know, we were told that we couldn't reduce the VAT. We did it, and in fact generated more revenue at a reduced rate. The school feeding program, we doubled it. The school transportation program, we doubled it. We reduced the license fees by half of the increase that we had gotten, and the waiver on the medical bills for persons that were vulnerable in our society, and we achieved all of those things within the first 6 months.
Your 3 most embarrassing gaffes, errors that you and your cabinet have made over the last 3 years. Take ownership of them. Which ones would they be?
Yeah, it's tough for me to say that. I mean, I'm a very positive outlooking.
But gaffes are gaffes?
Yeah, gaffes are gaffes. I mean, I can't even remember, to be honest with you. I'm truthful.
Would you like me to cue the tape?
Sure. Help me. Help me.
The ongoing battle between the St. Lucia National Trust and Prime Minister Alan Shasney has intensified.
Your inception in power, you seem to be in a ring with the St. Lucia National Trust. First it was over a dolphin park at Pigeon Island, then it wasn't at Pigeon Island, then the subvention was removed. Now you crush the old prison. You constantly seem to be in a problem with these people who are there to look after the interests of the sites. What is it with you and the National Trust?
Well, what is it with the National Trust and any political leader? So there is not an example in St. Lucia's history in which the National Trust has gotten on with the government, because they're two very different and opposing perspectives on development.
In all fairness, in the 5 years before that, there wasn't this disturbance between the last administration and the National Trust. You seem to be constantly in a ring with them.
And then that's very, very interesting because when we came in, the former government had approved 2 locations for a dolphin park. One at Anjabet, in which they actually had gone to the extent of doing a compulsory acquisition of the Chef Harry lands in that area. And also they had given incentives to a hotel in Rodney Bay to have a dolphin park. And a company approached us and they wanted to do a dolphin park at Pigeon Island, near Pigeon Island. And so what did we do? We took the proposal, we sent it off to the National Trust and asked the National Trust if they could review it and get back to us. Because at the end of the day, the entity that's responsible for the National Trust was them. Simultaneous to that, we started having discussions with the National Trust. The National Trust wanted the government to endorse a loan for them to convert the museum, which currently is being used as an office for themselves at Pigeon Island. They wanted to make it into a conference facility. And they also wanted to build a shop at the gates, and they also wanted to build a new office complex on Pigeon Island. So one, my administration did not agree in putting an office at Pigeon Island. 2, I asked for a feasibility study. Eventually they gave us a feasibility study. And the feasibility study, which was done in 2014, said it was a bad idea. And it said it was a bad idea because there was nothing unique about putting a conference facility at Pigeon Island. And the point here is that the National Trust and many national trusts around the world that are put in the same predicament are conservationist and also are now being asked to manage sites. And that's a tough balance to get.
Why did you pull the subvention?
Because the subvention was supposed to be for capital investments, not for maintaining their operating cost. And so therefore I said the subvention will always be available to you once you have a project that's going to make sense. So we thought the Dolphin Park would make sense there. They have yet to respond to me or to the government on that. Instead, what did they do? Started having marches, showed some design that somebody was going to dig out Pigeon Island to almost like create a sea aquarium, which was never the purpose of what the dolphin park was. It was a dolphin interaction. I don't trust them and they don't trust me.
They wouldn't trust you. If the correspondence is right, the correspondence said that everybody is going to have a discussion before the old prison was knocked down. So
that's not entirely true. The document says that there will be consultation on the incorporating the building, the old building into the new building. And that happened. So in fact, architectural drawings were shown to them of how it could happen. But the document also said that notwithstanding everything that had been agreed to, that the government didn't do anything wrong and was never at fault, and that would reserve the right to proceed. And I'm just saying that
you exercise that right.
Absolutely.
In the spirit of consensus, do you think that was the right move?
I think that in time people will see that it was the right move.
Are you agreeing that it was not the right move at this time?
No. I think that given the information that we had at hand, it was the best decision that we could make at this time.
Yep, yep, yep. We want to thank our guest of honor, the Prince, to be here personally to witness our groundbreaking.
The DSH project, your favorite, your baby, you're smiling, you like that. Give us a story. Tell us, where are we at with the DSH project and what were some of the challenges leading up to the very first race? You're smiling, you like that DSH project, boy.
It's not about liking the DSH project. I mean, the gentleman, Tewa King, is an amazing individual. And when you get to know him and understand what he's achieved in his life, it's pretty remarkable. So that's a piece of land. I can say to you, Dale, in my first 10 years in office, was not even looking at. Didn't know that property had any level of potential. And that's the Bosinju farm area. And when he showed me the horse racing track and what he wanted to do around that whole thing, I said, wow. And so we sat down within the next 6 weeks, developed a framework agreement that we could go by, and we signed the agreement in public. I mean, So here's a gentleman who had been in St. Lucia for 2 years. Up until the election, nobody knew who he was. Had never been introduced to St. Lucia. And those same plans had been presented to the government. They had not signed a framework agreement, but they had been in negotiations of a framework agreement. Instead, the government of the day went with a gentleman called Robert Ainsworth. And that's a whole story in itself.
So, what I understand is Teoakin is a prominent developer. Apart from his horse racing track that he financed, why isn't he using his money to develop the lands in Viewport? Why must our passports be sold?
So it's only his money that he's used. So he's never been approved as a CIP developer. So in fact, the approval for to be a CIP project only happened recently, in the last 8 weeks. He, up to today, has not sold one passport, and not $1 from the CIP program has gone into the project.
Prime Minister, but that's not what everybody on the ground believes. If you're saying this now, why hasn't your administration made that elusive?
We have, repeatedly. See, but what happened is that my good friend Richard Frederick and the Labour Party have shown a document which they claim is the framework agreement that we have. I can say this clearly, that in the framework agreement, the government agrees that it wants to be able and will be willing to make it into a CIP project. But wanting to do it and actually doing it is two very different things.
One of the key criticisms is that the Alan Shastney administration over the last 4 years has not accounted for the money collected from CIP. You hear that constantly.
Constantly, and you know it's an amazing, and it's something I really have to question, because we have been in the House in which I have sat and stood there on 3 different occasions. And I remember the last occasion in which the member from Castries South, Dr. Hilaire, was coming at us to say that we didn't account for the money, we never sought permission from the House to spend the money. So when we came in, the economic fund was not operationalized. All it was an act, but it didn't have any regulations to it. And so what we did is we decided to put the money into the consolidated fund instead. Putting into the consolidated fund means that somebody had to account for it. So the accountant general acknowledged receipt of X number of dollars. And that amount can be married with the CIP program. So those 2 numbers are exactly the same. Once the money is in a consolidated fund, to spend the money, you have to put it into the appropriations bill. So what we did is we showed the estimates, page 575, that said CIP, here's how much money that we're estimating that we're going to collect for the year. And then now I showed each page in which where that money was going to be spent in the appropriations bill. The appropriations bill is debated, and it's a public document. So at all times, people can ask any question they want on it. Thirdly, we come every single year and we give the annual report of the CIP. So again, it tells how many passports have been sold, how much money has been collected under the real estate program or under the donation program. And it gives all the names of the individuals who were approved as citizens in St. Lucia. And we've done that consecutively every single year. Sadly.
In what format? In the House of Assembly?
In the House of Assembly. It's in it's a form of an annual report.
A document?
A document.
So, how many St. Lucians do you believe actually have access to it, will read it, or will even understand it? Don't you think it may have been better to communicate such a contentious situation in a more forthright manner to the people?
Well, I think that every interview that I do, we speak about it. And I've spoken how the money was being used, where the money is going, how much money is being, I mean, it's being repeated. It's not something I'm trying to hide from anybody.
Let's switch gears for a moment. It is noticeable that your government engages contractors who seem sympathetic to your party. Fresh Start, for example. FDL Consult has been coming up quite recently. However, companies like the Renault Group, they're deliberately sidelined. Why?
I don't think it's a fair statement. I mean, when I came in, and I remember that we were going to use FDL on the St. Jude's project. And I remember meeting with CDB about FDL. And I was amazed as to how much work FDL is doing throughout the region. Renault has done work. He's done work for SLASPA. He's done work for the Ministry of Infrastructure. The Bardalil was done by him. All the painting of the roads were done by him. He's free to bid on all the different projects that are out there. I mean, there's a bidding process. I'm not involved in the tenders board. There's a big project taking place right now with the West Coast Road. My understanding is that he is one of the companies that have been shortlisted. We're doing a major project with 3 contractors, Fresh Start, Nationwide, and also Renault, to boost up the amount of roads that we're doing. So I don't think that that's a fair statement. In terms of Fresh Start was a company where reverse discrimination was done on them. In fact, the first time I met Fresh Start is when they were doing the bridge in Soufrière.
What do you mean reverse discrimination?
So when they did the bridge in Soufrière, they were allowed to finish that project, and it's amazing that that bridge cost $4.5 million. And take that into perspective, that the Bois d'Orange and some of the other bridges, which are much smaller, were almost double, and in some cases triple the price there. Well, Fresh Start was branded as being UWP. Here's a company, a local company, that did great work, and yet for the 5 years were completely discriminated against?
You mean Hippolyte's Construction?
No, I mean Fresh Start.
In the previous administration?
Correct. Now, for us, it's about everybody benefiting. You know, Renault is a person I know very, very well. Renault built my hotel, Coco Palm. So he was the contractor there. Renault has his preferences in politics, and he's free to do that. But Renault has a very different style of construction, one in which he is completely vertically integrated.
National Health Insurance, where is it now, and do you believe that it is achievable in your first term in office?
We have to do it. We have no choice.
You have to do it, but do you think it is achievable in your first term in office?
I think it is achievable. I mean, it's going to be difficult because everything was lined up for this thing to happen. The World Bank financing had been gotten. We were supposed to move into OKEU in September, and the insurance was supposed to be in place before we move in. And it's understanding the connection between the healthcare insurance and OKEU. Victoria Hospital costs $35 million a year to operate, as it is. But we don't spend enough money because it's not operated very well. The estimate for operating OKEU is in excess of $70 million a year. Where is that extra money going to come from? And so the goal here is to create a healthcare insurance program. So by getting everybody in St. Lucia to be part of the program, it reduces the premium. So right now people pay on average about $1,200 a year to get some basic insurance.
Universal healthcare has been on the cards since 1992. Every administration comes in with the very same promise. They leave office saying the very same thing. We could have achieved it. It was difficult. Perhaps next term. The next administration comes in, scraps the idea, redesigns it, and the very same thing happens. 2020, we're on the verge of making the same error. You spoke about it throughout your 4 years, and you are coming to the end of your 4-year term, going into the 5th year for elections. It ain't done yet.
Well, it's not done because there are so many parts, components that have to be put to it. But I would say to you that we're very committed to seeing it through. What would be the one hesitation to say to you absolutely categorically? COVID. Look at the number of people who've lost their jobs. You know, so it's going to depend significantly on the hotels reopening and getting jobs back in place, and that people can afford it.
What is the update on St. Jude, and will it be open before you ring that bell?
I'd like to think it would be. It's making tremendous progress.
This is going to be a deciding factor in this election. Healthcare is one of our biggest gripes. You came in, écoutez fâché, yeah? 4 years later, you cannot give us a date. You cannot tell us definitively that in your term in office, this will be done.
Well, I can say to you that everything as I speak now is streamlined to achieve that. I have no idea what's going to happen today or tomorrow. And sadly, COVID has been a stark reminder of how fast the world is changing. But right now, we are absolutely on stream to finish that hospital before we go into elections.
For reasons altogether personal, I have decided to tender my resignation with immediate effect from the Senate and as a minister.
2 ministers have resigned from your cabinet in 4 years. Apart from the 1979 administration, that's the highest it has ever been. Why? What do you think accounts for this?
Well, it's an unfair question because the fact is the circumstances surrounding both of them are very different, and the circumstances now have been played out in the public. You know, Jimmy was my minister. He was a senator. There were issues.
Prime Minister, we've heard that before. And if you ask the average person why Jimmy Henry was fired, I guarantee you they don't know. This is a moment for you to tell us definitively why you dismissed Jimmy Henry from your cabinet. Succinctly.
Jimmy answered the question.
No, I'm asking you the question,
I know, but
Prime Minister.
Jimmy answered the question. Jimmy was on an interview. Jimmy talked about going to Barbados and being invited to Barbados and coming back and bringing back money with him. You know, at the end of the day, there are actions that people are going to take that they have to be accountable for. If there are things that are happening that I can't possibly defend, I'm not going to attempt to try to cover things up. And even sometimes where the action may not be of criminal neglect, but certainly if in fact a person has acted irresponsible in any way, and I believe has not been living up to the standard of what we have established for ourselves, we would make that change.
In 2016, you assured St. Lucians that very shortly bananas will be exported to Martinique and to France. I checked, 2020, no bananas being exported to Martinique or to France. Why?
Oh, so many different reasons. I mean, we got off to a very early start. Minister Joseph and I went to Martinique. We actually went to France. We did a full tour of their distribution systems. It was agreed that we would send over a certain tonnage of bananas to them to sample it in the marketplace. As we were about to do that, we had a hurricane. The crop got destroyed. We then built back the demand. As we were going to send it to Martinique again, there was a significant shortfall in the Dominican Republic and in Ghana. And all our bananas were needed for the UK market. So again, we got stymied one more time. Then all of a sudden we were going to do it again, and they had a big problem in Martinique with black Sikatoga. So, you know, this is a very vulnerable crop, but has it been that this was a pie-in-the-sky regime? No, I learned a lot, and I remain absolutely committed to the banana industry.
What's the controversy?
Is there a link, or is there some connection, or is there any truth to the fact to the prince possibly visiting or having anything to do with the resort?
Have you made any phone calls?
Yes. Well, yes.
Have you?
Yes, sir.
You're lying.
I've made a phone call to Coco Palm.
And what did Coco Palm tell
They
you?
did not confirm that the prince will be visiting or staying there.
Coco Palm's not even open in November. Okay? The Prime Minister's office has nothing to do with the royal visit. That is something that's done through the Governor General's office.
In your 2016 manifesto, you stated your government intends to treat the media with respect. Why have there been so many hostile confrontations between you, your administration, and the free press? And more importantly, do you think that the press in St. Lucia is neutral? But let's answer the first question.
So when I came in, I remember the media used to camp outside the office downstairs on cabinet days.
Hey, come on, we've been doing that for 20-something years.
Right. Well, I remember, first time for me, right? And what did I do? Brought them upstairs. We created a press room. Brought them up and said, who do you ever want to interview? And so Nicole McDonald, as the communications director, was to respond to the media, and whichever minister they needed, we'd go and bring them from cabinet and bring them there. We put out booklets of information. We make ourselves available. I don't think there's been a prime minister that's made himself available to the media. No holds barred. And I ask for only one thing, of mutual respect. And it's not about me demanding that from anybody or it being a condition, but it is. So if you're going to do interviews with me and you're going to continuously want to, as I said, some of the media people have an answer already. They have their story already. So what they're going to do is continuously ask you a question until they get the answer that they want. They cut it the way that they want it, and they produce a document on you. I see just on the National Trust one with regards to the Royal Jail. Which media house put the last paragraph of the letter? Media houses went out and just showed exactly the first 2 pages. But the 3rd page, nobody put that. Is that fair?
And nowhere in the statement that was it made that happened. Now, I'm embarrassed for you, okay? And I'm ashamed of you as a journalist because it's something that's so easy to be able to rectify. And I think that actually, in fact, what you did was malicious. Thank you very much.
We continue to keep our doors open. Are there some individuals in the media that I have had my own personal difficulties with? Yes. Because I find that their reporting is extremely biased and unfair and prejudicial. So, and particularly some of those persons who themselves don't share any kind of values that I think that a media person should have. But that's the decision of the company who's hiring them to make that decision.
Here's to the stylish ones, the soccer ones, the pulling ones, and the beach bums. The ones who disregard the status quo, and the technologically advanced ones. For those who pay less and demand more. For those who want this, that, and everything in between, the Tivoli. Starting at only $899 per month. For those who need a test drive, call M Motors today. Telephone 451-4269.
Like every other business person, I was worried when the pandemic started. My sales dropped by 70%. No school, curfew, and social distancing meant less gas and tires. And that's my core business. I didn't lay off my staff, and I still had all my expenses to cover. Before my struggles really started, the general manager of my credit union came to see me. He offered me a line of credit which allowed me to stock up and stay afloat even during this difficult time. I had been dealing with traditional banks for a long time, but making that move to the Larry Credit Union was the best business decision I ever made. It's about people helping people. Because they're not a bank, they're better.
Hey, stop it.
That's what I'm here for.
For over 138 years, we've had your back. From home contents to medical, auto to business continuity. GTM Insurance. Sound, solid, and reliable.
Where most people see a window, we see a vision. we see the hours of development and testing, from the precision of craftsmen, quality of components, CNC processing to form immaculate all-glass products, the dedication of people who stand behind a product built to last a lifetime. And who knows, maybe after today, every time you look through one, you'll remember everything that went into it. St. Lou means windows, doors and all-glass products and customization of modular products to suit your needs. Precision, quality, safety. They're your windows and your world. Call us today at 454-6538.
Do you think that the media is politically neutral in St. Lucia?
Politically neutral?
Yes.
No. No. And clearly evidence speaks for itself.
Good morning, sir. How are you today?
Very good, thank you.
I just want to ask a quick question about the the National Health Insurance White Paper that was supposed to come out last October. Can you tell me who is working on that, and do you know what the progress is so far?
Any other questions?
Even when the question was
Well, you have some media people which very clear that they have a bias of one sort or the other. But that's okay, because that's in every part of the world. I mean, when you listen to, you have CNN and you have Fox. People will tell you that CNN is supporting the Democrats and Fox is supporting the Republicans, or somebody who favors President Trump, or somebody who favors Obama, or now Biden. I'm not expecting anything different from St. Lucia, so these things don't upset me. But is it true that some people have a political bias? Yes.
In 2016, you came in and the mandate was to deal with impacts, to get our police officers trained by the Americans, and yada, yada, yada. There was a lot of talk about it. 4 years later, we are at the same position. And though there have been significant things done, you had a DPP, we have the litany of things, the lab has been open, still, no solution to impacts. You are approaching your 5th year, and the possibility of this not being solved exists. Why?
My job as the Prime Minister of this country is to make sure that whatever investigation is taking place is not prejudiced. So you have an investigation that started off being prejudiced by the comments that the former Prime Minister made when he made his public address. The DPP is an independent person and is intended to be independent to protect St. Lucians.
Yes, Mr. Shastny, I understand that. But your words in opposition guaranteed your supporters, guaranteed St. Lucians, that when you got into office, you would have dealt with it.
And I have. So the first thing is to appoint a DPP and make sure that his department has the resources to investigate. I have done that.
But if the priority is to get us back to a sense of normalcy, you've had nearly 5 years to do so.
So that normalcy in many ways has been accomplished. So even just this week, we got notice that our FIA department has now been cleared by the U.S. State Department from the Leahy. We're in the process of opening up our border control department. Why? Marine police now come outside of your police, and training for those persons is going to happen. St. Lucia was being put in a very difficult situation with Leahy. And that difficult situation was that the Leahy law was applied to our entire police department. So I think people are going to be surprised what I'm going to say here. Jamaica's under the Leahy law. Mexico is under the Leahy law. Many different countries are under the Leahy law. The difference is that it's departments. But our force is so integrated that the entire force got put on. So I'm comfortable and satisfied. There's been no press conferences here where the Americans and the Europeans have come collectively together, the ambassadors, to complain about what's taken place, or even questioned whether in fact the government is playing its role. They're satisfied that the DPP is making progress. The DPP, sadly, could not use the impacts report. Impacts report was done outside of the DPP's office. So in essence, the DPP had to start the investigation all over again.
Page 33 of your 2016 manifesto said, under education, you intend on giving 1 computer per family. However, you stopped the laptop program. Why?
Well, we complained about the laptop program when we were in opposition because the laptops that were being selected were not an integral part of the education system. It was just a laptop. So the teachers hadn't been taught how to use it. There was no software program that was integrated in it. We now found a phenomenal thing called the ebook. So it's just like having an iPad. What's great is the entire school curriculum is on the iPad. So all your school books that you used to carry to school now is on an iPad. The new editions, it's automatically updated. So instead of paying now $1,000 a year for buying books for your child, it's $250 EC. Government will give you the first ebook for free. And you now just pay the $250 a year for the license fee for the child. And here's what's exciting about it. I just get so involved in this thing in terms of really taking our students and our country to the next level.
During the campaign, your Minister of Justice made several promises regarding the decriminalization of marijuana. Yes? We're moving into year number 5. Rastas, people who smoke marijuana are still being arrested. That was a campaign promise. Will this happen this term?
I hope so. We had a president.
Prime Minister. Every other question I ask you, you say, I hope so. Give us a definitive. That's what
I've learned that I've learned in politics or even in government, Dale, that I can tell you what we're committed to. We're committed to that. But I've also understood that the process to achieve that is not necessarily that easy. So there are persons who are vehemently opposed to any form of legalization of ganja. That's the reality. So there was a survey done here in 2017. 51% in favor, but it had a margin of error of 4%. So I don't know. So we have to go through a process. The process is through dialogue. There was a commission that set up. The commission made the presentation to us yesterday. And that commission now is going to have to go now and meet the Christian Council, meet the Private Sector Council, and the Bar Association, etc., as to here's the recommendations that's made to us as a cabinet in terms of what's their final input to come back to cabinet to make a final decision.
Loving you is easy 'cause you're beautiful. And everything that I do,
Here's to the stylish ones, the soccer ones, the pulling ones, and the beach bums. The ones who disregard the status quo, and the technologically advanced ones. For those who pay less and demand more. For those who want this, that, and everything in between, the Tivoli. Starting at only $899 per month. For those who need a test drive, call M Motors today. Telephone 451-4269.
When my refrigerator and the transmission on my car went bum in the same month, I found myself at a regular fast and accelerated lenders. The catchy ads got to me, and I signed. A few months later, I really began to feel the squeeze. They weren't concerned about my welfare or anything else but their repayments. I sat with my Labrie Credit Union, and not surprisingly, they had my back. Now, my repayments are tailored so I could breathe financially. When these emergencies arise, before signing up for these high-demand payday loans, give them a call. Ask for Kwedi Alez. To them, I wasn't a risk. I was family.
Life is a series of triumphs and trials. The circle of life has all the usual certainties and, of course, the unpredictable. Just one can affect you and your loved ones. Sadly, many fail to prepare for the unforeseen. Thankfully, we've been here for over 138 years, helping you plan and recover. We offer peace of mind at that critical moment. GTM Insurance. Sound, solid, and reliable. Call us today at 458-6300 or log on to gtminsurance.net.
Where most people see a window, we see a vision. We see the hours of development and testing, from the precision of craftsmen, quality of components, CNC processing to form immaculate all-glass products, the dedication of people who stand behind a product built to last a lifetime. And who knows, maybe after today, every time you look through one, you'll remember everything that went into it. St. Lou means windows, doors and all-glass products and customization of modular products to suit your needs. Precision, quality, safety. They're your windows and your world. Call us today at 454-6538.
The demolition of the old prisons certainly didn't have my input. It was a matter which resided in the Prime Minister's office, and the Ministry of Infrastructure was simply asked to supervise the activity there.
During the 2016 campaign, your two allies were your two biggest critics, former Prime Minister King and Spider Montoot. You've had 4 years to work with them. Stephenson King has been conspicuously absent in many of your activities. He did not stand in support of the motion of no confidence. Out of all your elected members, did not speak on your behalf. He has been conspicuously absent at some of your other activities. What is your relationship now with Stephenson King in your cabinet and in your party?
I've always had the greatest amount of respect for Minister King. So even when he was the Prime Minister, I was very supportive of him. I enjoyed immensely working with him. When we lost the election, the party believed it was time for us to go in a different direction. And it's always difficult, when you were the Prime Minister, and I understand some of his own emotions moving forward. But I also have a tremendous amount of respect for him because he was a former Prime Minister, and to now be working in my cabinet. And so this is why I've tried to make sure that I keep that level of respect there.
Why do you think the electorate kicked out Dr. Kenny Anthony and his stars in 2016?
Simple, it didn't deliver. Better days, jobs. And this just didn't deliver. So at the end of the day, persons became frustrated.
Prime Minister, how are you going to be different? How is your record going to be different to that of Dr. Anthony's?
Well, I think for one, that we have lived up to our manifesto. We have worked very hard. My government has not focused on any one area. This has been fixing up roads, fixing up schools, fixing up the healthcare center, fixing up the police offices, trying to fix up villages, focusing on agriculture, focusing on sports. This has been a widespread campaign. I've never sat here and complained about whether there was a hurricane, whether there's COVID. We've remained focused on still delivering to the public of St. Lucia what we think they want. Now, is the public of St. Lucia free to change their idea of building a new St. Lucia? Sure. But certainly in terms of our promise to build a new St. Lucia, that's well on the way. And as I indicated to persons, I can't do it in 5 years. But I recognize that there is an election within 5 years. And I have to hope that people have seen enough of what we've been doing that we're on the right direction. So we've grown the economy for 4 years. We've reduced unemployment. We reduced the debt to GDP. So I keep on hearing, oh, the government is mismanaging the economy. Where's the evidence of that?
The leeches are those who come to a poor country and want the country to spend over $3 million doing Bartem Cheval for them. Spend millions of dollars diverting roads. A leech will come here, like those who go in our NIC funds and take millions of dollars for some Cabot Link project.
Mr. Speaker.
These are the leeches.
Understanding a point of order.
Prime Minister, over the last month, you have taken a battering, an absolute battering. You've been criticized from every possible angle. Your approval rating, if there was a poll, would be in the lurch. And generally, you are under pressure from the opposition. What is your strategy to gain the confidence of St. Lucians who are wading away?
So I don't necessarily agree with your assessment. I think it would be interesting if there was a poll to see what my approval rating is, because certainly when I walk around St. Lucia, I'm not getting that impression. Is the opposition battering me? Yes, but that's their job. Is our communication strategy to defend ourselves sometimes lacking? I would say yes. I think that sometimes we take too long and we take too much for granted that persons understand what it is. So for instance, DSH, if you polled most St. Lucians, they believe that they've been spending CIP monies. Now, I'm in court with Richard Frederick. How many people know that? On 2 defamation cases. So this idea, oh, you don't respond. Me responding to Richard and he calling me a liar and I'm calling him a liar achieves nothing. I would like the court to make that determination.
How has being Prime Minister changed you?
It's made me more patient.
Is it?
Yeah. It's made me even more humble, because sometimes you think you have all the answers, and sometimes it's the simplest person that you meet, and they see it completely differently. Now you have to put yourself in a frame of mind, always, to be receptive to those ideas. And part of that is accepting the criticism.
Final question. Why did it take you 3 years to have another interview with Untold Stories? Because you gave us a lot of runaround for that interview. Why?
Well, I don't think that I was deliberately giving you a runaround. I mean, maybe sometimes you treat your friends the worst. Look, I've given a lot of interviews. At the end of the day, nothing before it's time. I have more fire in my belly than I had ever before. I'm more experienced in terms of trying to get some of these things done. And I believe I have a great group of people that share those same values. Thank you.